Hello and welcome. It is another rousing edition of the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast. I'm Matt Michaels. Hello to you, Brad Trinago.
Hello to you. We've officially hit that busy season. A historic win for one of our winter sports, and we got spring sports that are getting ready to ramp up this week.
Yes, right around the corner, and we will introduce you to our guest to that end after we introduce you to our friends at Shelter Insurance. Of course, they power the podcast. They're ranked #1 in customer satisfaction for auto insurance in the Central Region by J.D. Power. 6 of the last 7 years. We're your shield, we're your shelter. And Tiger fans, say aloha to Hawaiian Bros, where the island-inspired flavors are positively delicious. You'll love favorites like Huli Huli Chicken, Luau Pig, and the delectable Dole Soft Serve. Hawaiian Bros is just south of campus on Grindstone Parkway, or order online at hawaiianbros.com. Our guest today is about ready to head on a big, long trip to Clearwater, Florida for Mizzou Softball's first 2 weekends of action. And she is a native of O'Fallon, Missouri. Tiger catcher Julia Crenshaw joins us here on the podcast. Julia, appreciate it. Or should we just call you Cranny the entire time like all your teammates do?
That's up to you.
All right, that's fair. That's good.
Black and gold scrimmage for the team was on Sunday. What stood out the most to you from that?
We can score runs. And Kara Daly, man, what a game she had. It's actually her birthday today, but she actually finished the day with 2 home runs and a double. So I thanked her for scoring me a couple times, and it was good to get around the bases a few times.
You know, that's something that we know last year your team maybe at times was in these tight, low-scoring ball games. Does it feel good to kind of have the first one out of the way, even if it's an inter-squad, and say, oh, yeah, both sides are scoring runs today. We're going to be just fine when we start this thing up.
Oh, absolutely. I think it takes – obviously it takes stress off the defense, but I think it also takes a lot of stress off our pitchers, Last year, when they had to keep the games under 3 runs, the other team from scoring 3 runs or less, it just put a lot of pressure on them. So I think they know we can score a lot of runs, and that excites them. It doesn't allow them to make mistakes, but it allows them to kind of take the weight off their shoulders a little bit. So I know they're thankful for us, and hopefully we can just continue to pack the runs on for them.
Well, we shouldn't say that it's just an intra-squad scrimmage. From what I understand, players, whenever they get to Mizzou, they're team black or they're team gold, and you stay on those teams your entire career, and it can be a pretty fierce rivalry from what I understand.
Honestly, if that's the case for the other sports, but I guess that's not the case for softball.
Okay.
We actually have been changing it up quite a bit. During the fall, the score was pretty lopsided as well, so she liked to switch it up, and I guess that didn't really work out because the score was a little lopsided again, so maybe she can get the formula right for next year. I'm not sure, but
that was a back-in-the-day thing, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, but, it was still a little chippy, here and there. Some strike calls that could have gone either way, but it's always good, to play your teammates. So
go back to when you were in high school and you were developing as a softball player. Was Missouri always at the top of the mind for you? If you were going to play at the next level, you were always going to be a Tiger?
Oh, absolutely. Just to be able to represent the home state. What a greater feeling. It's awesome. I had other places looking at me, but deep down in my heart, I knew that this is where I wanted to go.
I heard a story about one of those other places, University of Texas. You're on a recruiting visit there, and that kind of helped you realize that you really should be here, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll never forget the weekend. It was September 21st, the weekend of September 21st, 2019. That Saturday, we went to a Texas. Honestly, I can't even remember who they were playing, but we were sitting probably 10 rows up at the 50-yard line. And believe it or not, Mizzou was actually playing at the same time. They were playing South Carolina. And, my dad was sitting to the left of me, and he had the Mizzou game on, and my eyes did not leave his phone. I know Texas won, but I didn't care. They were saying Texas fight, and I was like, what does this even mean? M-I-Z, but it was just, that's when I knew, I'm not worried about the game that's 10 rows in front of me. I'm more worried about the game that's back home.
Do you catch a sideways glance from a recruiting coordinator when you're looking at a different team at the football game?
I made sure there was nobody behind me that, was on the softball staff. But I think the girl next to me, who was also a recruit, was kind of like, what's this girl doing? We're here, we're at a visit. And I think she just committed that visit. And I'm like, good for you. This ain't for me. So
well, you were one of the top recruits in the country, and you came here as an infielder. You're mainly a catcher now. Can you tell us that story of how you ended up behind the plate?
absolutely. I'd never seen another position other than shortstop. My entire high school. My entire softball career up until college. I got here, obviously you have Jenna Laird at shortstop, and I mean, she's the best of the best. So coach kind of put me in the outfield to maybe, give me some time out there. I couldn't track a fly ball to save my life. It was awful. If I could give an arm to know where a ball was going to land, I would give it. But it just wasn't for me. So she moved me over to second base at the end of my freshman year, just kind of developing there as I, were to see the field there my sophomore year. And then we were at Tulsa. It was right in the middle of the season. And coach goes, Cranny, you're behind the plate this game. I said, Coach, say it one more time. And she goes, Cranny, you're behind the plate this game. I said, all right, who's pitching? She goes, Lauren Cranks. I said, okay, she throws 70. It's light work. But, that's the first game I ever caught, and it was Lauren Cranks. And, hey, if you can catch Lauren, you can pretty much catch anybody in the country. So that was my first game. And then my second game ever catching was my first ever start at SEC play at Kentucky. So I was thrown in there, and it was figure it out, and my teammates knew that I was figuring it out, and I think, they had my back, and it was just a learning experience that whole year. But now I wouldn't trade it for the world. I don't want to go back to the infield. I mean, if I have to, I will, but I love my pitchers. I love just the catching, just philosophy behind it. It's something that I wouldn't trade for the world.
So when you went in, was it completely cold? Had you ever caught Lauren before, or any of the staff?
I mean, a few times in the bullpens, but I was mainly the second baseman. I mean, that whole year in Florida, California, like our preseason tournaments, I was second base. I didn't see any action behind the plate except for maybe a little bit at practice, but it was mainly all second base. And then here it was all catcher. It was a complete 180, and I was like, all right, yeah, I do this in practice, but it's so much different, in practice, and then, whenever you're thrown in there for an SEC game. So,
well, we'll get into the finer elements of being a catcher in that transition. But, one thing, obviously, you wonder about, like, okay, can she throw out someone that's trying to steal second base? Well, you were a state javelin champion in high school, so the arm strength is pretty good, I'm guessing. Did the experience throwing a javelin, did that translate at all or help you at all in terms of trying to catch base runners?
I mean, maybe some of it kind of correlated, but the javelin is just such an interesting throw. I mean, it's kind of like a football, honestly. Like, you got to kind of follow your hand. You always say throw it through the point, so your throw's kind of up and not out. But it's definitely different than a softball, but I'm sure the strength aspect helped me out a lot.
Well, I imagine the footwork aspect too, right? If you're throwing a javelin, aren't you basically counting your steps like some other field athlete would, say in the jumps, stuff like that?
Absolutely, yeah. So you have like your run up, and then you transition into your crossovers, and those have an exact number, and you can't cross the foul line. So if you miscount the steps, if you miscount really anything, you're gonna foul. So just making sure everything's on point.
What were some of the growing pains you did have as you made that move to catcher in games? Coach Anderson tells a story about how there was a foul ball and you just stuck a hand back for the umpire to give you a new one, and the umpire was like, actually, the ball's over there, go get it. But just stuff like that. What were some of the experiences
I mean,
you had
yeah,
there?
if you watch an MLB game, that's what all the big guys do. So I was like, I mean, hey, this is pretty much the highest level you can get. SEC softball, there's nothing higher. So here, let me stick my hand back there and see if this guy will put a softball in my hand. But no, he didn't. Yeah, he made me go get it. So that was definitely I guess a come to Jesus moment, if you will. But that blocking is still a little bit of a struggle for me. Just the instincts aren't all that molded there yet, but we're getting there. And I think just catching the drop balls, the pitches in the dirt. But what's so special about our game is that every fundamental, every technique, it has to apply to every position. So, we have a throw, and, that has to go from shortstop, and then, you move it back to catcher, and it's the same throw. It's the same thing. So just if you're good at the fundamentals, you can play any position on the field.
Yeah, what you say that the drop ball is the hardest for you to handle. When you were first learning, was it always that? A rise ball, a screwball? I mean, the fact that pitchers can move it across all four basically dimensions of the zone in the sport of softball must have made it extra challenging when you're just going back there and saying, I have to track this thing and know where it's going to go. Like, even when you know the pitch is coming, that's not easy.
Absolutely, and I think it's just, knowing. For me, yeah, it was a drop ball. The rise, screw, curve, I didn't really struggle with that. But with the drop ball, you really have to pinpoint, okay, is this ball going to drop into the dirt or will it stay, on the plane, and can I catch it in the air? And I think, me being a shortstop, I just like to pick everything. So here behind the plate, I just want to pick everything, and coach is like, no, you have to block the ball. Like, we have runners on right now. And I'm like, okay, got it, coach. So it's just kind of, just turning that switch, and it's just the instincts, that I'm still growing. So
Tiger fans, say aloha to Hawaiian Bros, where the island-inspired flavors are positively delicious. You'll love favorites like huli huli chicken, luau pig, and the delectable Dole soft serve. Hawaiian Bros, just south of campus on Grindstone Parkway, or order at hawaiianbros.com.
You mentioned building that relationship with your pitchers, and Lauren Krings has wrapped up a terrific career. Her eligibility's up, but you got a lot of pitchers who got a lot of experience last year that are back. Wanted to start with Cece Harrison. She was 14-3 as a sophomore. What is she working on to be even better as she moves into, I assume, an even bigger role?
I mean, she's going to be great for us this season. I'm so excited just to see just how she's going to carry this team. She's amazing. Her rise ball is absolutely deadly. Her changeup's insane. Her curveball has some rise to it. I mean, she's just filthy. And just to have that relationship, that bond with her, where I know where her weaknesses are, and I can kind of pinpoint that, and we can just kind of work through that together. It's really special to have, like, a relationship with your pitchers, like Coach preaches on it all the time. Like, you have to know your pitchers in and out. And I think the more that, I end up doing that, it's so much easier to throw with them, and you almost communicate, like, telepathically. It's awesome.
I think it has to be pretty special, too, that as someone still kind of learning the position, you get to work with a freshman pitcher last year in Marissa McCann, who had a lot of success, and now she's ready to take that step forward. What have you seen out of her in this preseason that makes you really excited for what can come for Marissa?
Just a tremendous amount of growth. I mean, she's definitely going to be one of our core pitchers this year, as she was last year. She's developed a drop ball that I'm still learning to catch, but I mean, she just has insane movement that I've never seen before. Her curve moves, I mean, at least 6 inches. Like, it's absolutely filthy. But she's so exciting. She's so just emotional out on the mound that it's just really fun to play behind.
15 saves for Taylor Pinnell last season as a sophomore. That was tops in the country, actually tied an NCAA record. What is it about her mindset that made her so good in late inning situations?
I mean, she's got some things written on her glove that I can't say out loud, but it's a mindset, seriously. Like, her mindset is, I'm going to beat you. And to have a pitcher like that out on the mound with that determination and that focus, like, it's just insane. It's awesome to work behind. And, like, when your pitchers work hard, you want to work hard for them. You want to get as many strikes as you can for them. And I just think that's what sets Taylor apart from every other pitcher is, like, when she wants those high-pressure situations, which I don't know how she does it. I mean, I'd be sweating out there, but she loves it. She craves it. And, she asks Coach in practice to put her in those situations so that she can feel that pressure in practice and kind of mimic that. And it's her mindset. She's a dog.
We've mentioned 3 pitchers. You have an unusual position as a college catcher because not every pitching staff in the country is stacked with 7, and your team is. Do you have to keep a Rolodex of everybody's stuff and then look at it and say, oh, yeah, I'm working with this person right now?
Absolutely, and I think that's what's so fun about just having that many on our staff is, I've got to keep my cards straight, but that also the other team, they can't keep all their cards straight whenever we have that many. So I think that's what's so fun about it. It's awesome having that many as a staff, and they're all so different. We've got all different speeds, all different, strengths and pitches, and it keeps the hitters on their toes. It's awesome.
What about pitch framing? That process for you, that's something obviously as a shortstop you don't have to worry about. What have you learned about trying to maybe earn a few more extra strikes for your pitching staff?
Absolutely. I think I take my framing, like, that's my bread and my butter. Blocking I kind of struggle with, but framing, that's where I thrive the most as a catcher, I believe. And, if I think that's where, my sophomore year, like, I knew that I was new to it, so I'm going to get back here and I'm going to just try and steal as many strikes as I can. And I think that's just what my mindset was, and I think that's kind of carried throughout. And I think that's what's kind of, allowed my growth as a catcher.
Well, you mentioned the blocking is still kind of a process in terms of developing that instinct. Did the framing aspect come a little more naturally to you then?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's just, at shortstop you have to have good hands, and I think that just kind of transitioned over to my catching abilities, thankfully. But yeah, framing is my favorite thing to do behind the plate.
Yeah. What is the thing that most impacted for you? Is it the setup? Is it the subtle motion of the glove? How do you look at framing a pitch?
I think it all correlates. The body position, you want to be a little bit angled so that the umpire can kind of see you straight on with the corner of the plate and just pulling it back into the center line of your body. And it's got to be quick. It can't be slow, or else they're going to see that, you're trying to move it a lot. But it's got to be quick. It's got to be efficient. It's got to be smooth. And when it all kind of rolls together, it's really satisfying to do.
As Matt mentioned, the season starting this weekend down in Clearwater, Florida, starting off with Marshall on Friday and also a top 25 matchup against Northwestern on Friday. But I think a lot of folks might be peeking ahead to Saturday and a rematch with Duke. And what a great super regional battle that was here in Columbia last season. Also a run to the SEC Tournament Championship last spring. So a lot of success there, but still some opportunities for growth. Are you guys using that season last year as motivation for this coming spring?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, like last year it was a dream. It was absolutely unreal to host Supers, to get into that SEC championship. Like, you dream of that, but we want more. We want the Women's College World Series, like that's what's on our wall. That's what's in our locker room, like we want that, and we know that we can attain it. So we just got to bump up our standards a little more. And last year we hosted Duke, and I was hoping that, that you were going to bring up that rematch, but to see them celebrating on Sunday on our field, knowing that they were the ones going to Supers, like, it just continues to light a fire in us every day. And to know that we have that matchup, there's definitely some unfinished business there that it's going to be taken care of. I can tell you that.
Julia, name a player or two on this team that you see as someone who's going to either play a big role in what this season is, or is going to surprise some people that maybe people aren't really considering right now as a big key player for your ball club.
Right. Cara Daly, the whole city knows her. She's from Jeff. She's just a great player. She's a big kid, and she's probably going to be our shortstop this year. Probably the biggest shortstop in the country for sure, but I'll tell you, that girl can move. But, she's just so powerful, and what makes her, just even better, she's a great person. Like I said, it's her birthday today, and I love her to death. I've been playing with her for 4 years, and she's definitely one of my favorites on the team. But I think Kaylee Langer, I don't remember what award she got, but
getting hit by pitches a
lot. Oh, my goodness.
I don't know what that award, the black and blue award.
No, for sure. Her legs were just all black and blue last season. It was awesome. But, hey, she got on base. But she's just so pivotal in the outfield. Her communication out there is just insane, and her ability to get on base, like you said, is just incredible. So I think she's going to have a great year. I think Kara's going to have a great year. But I also think Madison Walker, she's been so consistent throughout practice in this preseason, and her hitting has been tremendous. She's probably going to play third for us this year. And I'm just really excited to see what that sophomore can do for us. You
mentioned a potential replacement for Jenna Laird at shortstop. Another standout who had a terrific career that's wrapped up now is Alex Honold in center field. How are things? Well, you got Langer, but how are things looking in the outfield besides her?
We've got a bunch of different moving parts, and I think that's what's fun. Is like nothing is really solidified yet. So coach is going to throw probably 3 or 4 outies out there that, the spot's theirs if they want it, and if they perform, then it's theirs, and I think that's really exciting. My backup to catcher is Stefania Abrascato. Love her to death, and we need her bat in the lineup. So coach is like, hey, Fania, you're going to go play outfield, let's see what you can do out there because we have to have you in the lineup. And Fania loves it out there now. Like, she's like, Cranny, have fun behind the plate. I'm going to go play with my outies out here. And, but, that's just – when you have a good team, you run into problems like that. And I know coach is sitting up there scratching her head, but she wouldn't want it any other way. You get 9 girls that can hit, you got to find a spot for them, somewhere out in the field. But it's definitely a good problem to have.
Well, Coach has clearly shown. I mean, she took an outfielder to second baseman to catcher route with you, and that might seem unusual, but what does it say to have the confidence of a head coach and a staff that they see those sorts of potentials in you that makes you want to go after it as a player? In other words, not just look at it and say, what? And say, okay, we're going to do it.
I think just knowing that I have players with versatility. I think Coach, she recruits athletes. She recruits girls that can do that, and I think that's so important. I think, of our lineup right now, you have Kara playing shortstop. She's a third baseman. You've got me playing catcher, and I'm a shortstop. You've got Kaylee playing outfield. She was an infielder whenever she got here. So it's just girls that are athletes, and if you get athletes on the team, they can pretty much play anywhere, and you can make do with pretty much whatever.
I want to circle back to Marissa McCann, one of the members of the pitching staff. Last season, you're on a road trip down in Texas. You're killing time, I guess, and the way you decide to kill time is Marissa McCann gets a tattoo, apparently.
Where did you get this?
She brought it up on Tiger Talk last year,
Okay,
so that was the story. Yeah, it was great because apparently she accidentally texted it to her mom or something, and then her mom was like, what was that? And she tried to delete the text. It was too late. Great story. You should go back in the feed and check it out. But anyway, so were you involved? Were you like egging her on for the tattoo, or what was that? What was that process like?
Honestly, I think it was her and the pitchers. I think her and Lauren Krings went. I think Lauren got like a lip tat, and if you forget, Marissa got a duck on her ankle.
Yeah.
Like, why a duck? I have no idea.
She didn't have an idea. She just said, "Oh, it looked cute."
Yep, and it's just and it's the stories like that, that she's never gonna forget, and like. We had an incredible year last year, but the memories with the team, like that, that outweighs all the wins and the losses. And like our trip to New York, we visited the Dallas Stadium down in Texas, and it's just those memories, like you're going to live with that forever. And I always say, since I'm graduating this year, I can't wait for everyone's wedding, like put us in a corner and let us have fun. But seriously, it's the girls that make this whole experience worth it.
So whenever this ride is done with this team and this season, Julia, when you look back on it, what would you call success? Is it something on the field? Is it something off the field? What does that look like for you?
I think success starts off the field. You have to have a good relationship with your team. And, when you love one another, when you play for one another, when you want the best for one another, I think just winning is a byproduct of all of that. And so I definitely think success starts off the field, and, it'll come on the field with just all of that, connectivity off the field.
And the season starts itself on Friday the 7th at noon Central Time against Marshall, then Northwestern, Duke. You can watch that one on MLB Network. You can follow this Tiger softball team all throughout the season. Can't wait for the home opener as well. You have it lucky because you always get a home opener in March, it seems. And so March the 4th, hopefully it is 70 degrees and balmy for the Roos of Kansas City. And we thank Julia Crenshaw for joining us here on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast to talk about this season as it gets underway. We appreciate it, Julia. All the best to you and your teammates as you go through the season. We can't wait to see what's in store.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
That's Julia Crenshaw. Brandon and I will be back with much more happening inside Mizzou Athletics after you hear from our friends at Shelter Insurance.
This episode of Mizzou Storytellers on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast is brought to you by Shelter Insurance. Ranked number 1 in customer satisfaction for auto insurance in the Central Region by J.D. Power 5 out of the last 6 years. We're your shield. We're your shelter.
All right, you good? Okay, we'll do it in 3, 2, 1. And the podcast is also powered by Socket. Socket Fiber is now available. It's the fastest, most reliable internet combined with local service and simple billing. Contact Socket today for voice data and internet services for your home and business. 1-800-SOCKET3 or visit socket.net. And Sophia's and Addison's restaurants. Don't forget them. They're great local spots to visit before or after all Mizzou home games. Addison's has 2 locations in Southwest and downtown Columbia and features over 20 beers on tap, including local brewers and, of course, the famous Nachos Bianco. So remember, before or after the game, stop by Addison's.
Socket Fiber Internet, the only thing faster than how quickly Mizzou extended its lead at Mississippi State late in the first half and early in the second half.
Well, it was a 10-0 run late in the first half specifically, and then early in the second half. Sometimes you just have to say, our team has the best three-point shooter in the country, and your team does not. Caleb Grill scored 20. Missouri got another big win. In fact, their largest win over a ranked team in a road game at Mississippi State, which I almost found it hard to believe when that news came out from Jason Vinisky, who handles all of the sports information for Mizzou men's hoops. But, I mean, I think that just tells you what type of a contest that was. And really, by the end of it, it was no contest. The Tigers truly dominated the 14th ranked team in the country. 88-61 the final. A 27-point win on the predictive margins basically made it a 33-point swing over what some of the brains and the formulas thought would happen. Missouri's formula was very simple. We will shoot more threes and make more than you, and you will not be able to catch us. And that's exactly what they did.
Well, and yeah, they obviously shot really well from the outside, and that certainly helped. 47% from three. Take 8 of those 3-pointers away, and Mizzou still wins this game. I mean, this was a whooping in a lot of different ways. The outside shooting certainly set a tone, but I think I was more excited by how well this team looked defensively against a team that was playing at home, ranked 14th in the country coming into the game, and they just really struggled to get anything going at all offensively. Mizzou's defense was just incredibly disruptive. Lots of deflections, lots of steals. That led to some easy buckets as well. Again, yes, it helps to have, Caleb Grill again leaving the earth for a little while there. But man, this team just did all the right things in that game. And in a place where Mizzou for more than a decade has not played well, to be honest.
Only won once.
It has really not gone well there since like 2013, if we're being real. And so to go from that to just a complete destruction down in Starkville against a team that, again, was ranked in the top 15 at the time. I mean, the ceiling is the roof at this point for this Mizzou men's basketball team.
Yeah, need to point out a couple of other performances. Josh Gray came off the bench, played 24 minutes, and had his first double-double at Missouri. He had 10 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 of those rebounds on the offensive glass. Only Keyshawn Murphy got more offensive rebounds for Mississippi State in the game, so he basically canceled that out if you want to look at the rebounding prowess, and Murphy had 16 points, and Gray had 10. And I think you would take the Josh Gray double-double any day of the week and twice on Saturdays like it was this past Saturday. And I say that the three-point shooting made a difference because when Grill was hitting the shot and Cruz hit a couple of big three-pointers, he was 3 of 7 in the game and 3 of 7 from beyond the arc as well. He took all his shots from three-point land. That just gave the distance, and you knew that Mississippi State was not a team that shot particularly well from 3, so catch-up would be hard unless they were getting everything inside. And Missouri's defense over the course of the year has shown you're not going to get easy stuff inside against this team, and Mississippi State didn't. I think another impressive thing, too, Brad, is it's hard to do this. There was not a single player who touched the floor for Mississippi State who was not a negative player in the plus-minus. There was not even a 0 out there. There was not a dead even. Everybody took the L on Mississippi State's roster, which is very, very difficult to do. Meanwhile, everybody Missouri played was at least a 0 or above in the plus-minus. That is the sign of what you called, it's a thorough kicking that Missouri delivered Mississippi State, and one that hasn't been seen very much in recent years, and very refreshing to see, but I don't think entirely surprising to see. You could have seen something like this in your mind's eye if Missouri played one of its better games, and they did. And they took that, again, a top 14 team on the road, which is why saying that there isn't really much of a ceiling for this team right now is completely fair, because they've showed us that when they're at their best, they're going to give anybody in the country a hard time. And that includes the number 1 team in the country, Auburn. And nobody wants to play Auburn, right? But if this Missouri team, the way it's playing right now, would have played Auburn this coming week instead of the first game of the SEC season, I wonder how that game would have looked. I mean, truly, it's a team playing right now. Missouri is at the top of its powers, it feels like.
Well, it won't be the number 1 team in the country coming up this week, but it will be a team that will be in the neighborhood of the top 10 when the road trip to Tennessee comes up midweek, and that is a place where Mizzou has had some recent success and some recent highlight reel moments, but an opportunity to continue to build this resume, which it's starting to become a thing. I mean, Mizzou is 3rd place outright in the SEC. Again, the top 4 still get a double bye in the SEC tournament, which could be really, really helpful if you want to make a run at trying to win that thing. And congratulations to Dennis Gates, 100th career win, 50 at Cleveland State, 50 now here at Mizzou, so congrats on that. And Caleb Grill, speaking of him, keep an eye on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast feed. You might have some Caleb Grill-related stuff coming your way soon.
Could there be in the future?
Could
or
there be?
Or in the near?
There may.
Just keep your eyes out. We'll just say that, and that's good enough. So yeah, Tennessee, and then back home against Texas A&M. We said before this stretch, the first time Missouri had played 4 ranked teams in a row since the 1950s. I think anybody would say reasonably, if you split them, you feel really good about it. Well, you've earned your split. So now go out there and do things that separate you from others in your league and separate you from others across the country. And that's what the opportunity is with these next 2 games.
Well, I think with Mizzou sitting at 17-4 overall, 6-2 in the league, we've moved past the okay. Can you squeak out a win here and squeak out a W there and limp into the NCAA tournament? Now it's a conversation of how high up can you finish in maybe the greatest conference in the history of college basketball? Not an exaggeration if you look at the stats and what happened in the preseason and non-conference play. And then how high can you get in terms of your seeding in the NCAA tournament to position yourself for hopefully a deep run in March?
Yeah, and again, this is the best start Missouri has ever had to Southeastern Conference play. They start 6-2. Now, could you see something happen completely out of character and see things go off a cliff or whatever? Yeah, I guess it's possible, but I only say that to illustrate that some of these predictive metric places basically have Missouri as a tournament lock right now. That they're saying, come what may, we see this team and the way its profile is statistically as capable of winning a couple more games. And I think that everybody who's watched them would agree, like, you're going to at least find a couple, even if things go really, really wrong from this point.
And despite the fact, like we mentioned, there's this gauntlet here of ranked teams, Mizzou doesn't play a ranked team in every single game. The rest of the way, there are some unranked opportunities. A couple of those are at home. So, yeah, Mizzou's in a really good position.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. You don't think that's going to happen. But that's just to illustrate most of their work is done. And a couple more wins from now, nobody will be able to say that they aren't in the field. So now it is truly about building your resume and putting yourself in the right position to find yourself, and I think it's going to be really important, Brad, not just in the top half of maybe an NCAA bracket and wearing the right color uniform, but in the top half and certainly the top 4, if you can make it, of the Southeastern Conference. I think it's really, really important. If you want to have a deeper run in the big dance, you've got to find yourself in one of the byes in Nashville, and preferably you have to find yourself in the top 4. I think those top 4 teams in the SEC are positioned for deep, deep March runs if they can get there.
Well, and I think, too, that if you're one of those top 4 seeds in the SEC tournament, there's a very good chance you're going to be a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, which means you're theoretically going to be favored to at least make the Sweet 16. I think that's a very realistic and reasonable goal for this Mizzou team, the way they're playing right now.
100%. So it's been a lot of fun. We said it would be fun to follow. I'm not sure that anybody predicted it would be this fun this early, but it has been very fun. So we will continue following the fun for you here on the podcast. Mizzou women's basketball, I got to say this, playing against a Tennessee team that comes in ranked and comes in, I'm sure, with its own little head of steam just in the way that they've played the balance of this season. I think the women's basketball team acquitted itself really well. It was a defeat at home against the Lady Vols, but I don't think 76-71 truly reflects the nature of the way that game was played. I think Missouri acquitted itself in a contest. I mean, shoot, you had a steal on an inbounds and a three-pointer that if it goes in makes it a one-possession ball game right at the finish. They played really well in that game. It's a shame to see them on the losing end. I don't know how you feel about it, Brad, but I feel really heartened by the way they played against the Lady Vols.
It's weird to say in a week where you go 1-2, but I think that was the best week of basketball that we've seen from this team. Beat Mississippi State at the buzzer back on Monday. We've already kind of talked about that in last week's podcast. Went to 5th-ranked Texas on Thursday, led that game for more seconds than Texas did, actually, in the game. Did not trail at all until the third quarter, in fact, before the Longhorns were able to finally get control and wound up winning by 9. And then led the game against Tennessee for almost the exact amount of time that Tennessee did. So, I mean, you're right in that thing. Back and forth, led by as much as 12 early. And, Tennessee really does a great job of turning you over. So giving it away 24 times obviously was a killer stat in this contest. But, down 10 with about 6 minutes left, got to a point where it was a 3-point game and Mizzou had the ball. Unable to score that possession, but still, in the fight, still sticking with it. Challenging stretch of games on the women's side, too. And I think the Tigers acquitted themselves well in all 3 of those games. Now you got to try and keep that going against yet another ranked opponent, a top 10 LSU team coming to town on Thursday, and then on the road in an opportunity against a Texas A&M team that's struggled so far this year in SEC play. They're dealing with some injuries to some key players now. That's coming up on Sunday. So yeah, still some opportunities to pick up some wins out there down the stretch.
This episode of Mizzou Storytellers on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast is brought to you by Sophia's and Addison's Restaurants. Sophia's and Addison's Restaurants are great local spots to visit before or after all Mizzou home games. Addison's has 2 locations in Southwest and downtown Columbia and features over 20 beers on tap, including local brewers and, of course, their famous Nachos Bianco. So remember, before or after the game, stop by Addison's.
Yeah, for sure. It was a tough outing through the Sooner State for the Tiger wrestling team. I was almost thinking of calling them the Cowboy State for some reason, just because they wrestled at Oklahoma State. When it comes to wrestling, it is the Cowboy
In wrestling,
State.
it is the Cowboy State, yeah.
But difficult. You're facing, again, another couple of ranked teams for Mizzou wrestling. And as we've mentioned, right now, just too injured to look at the team score and say, okay, our path is going to be easy in any of these nights out. So, I think the good news is it's February, and that means Keegan O'Toole may indeed be near. We knew that he would miss the month of January, so let's see how he looks, again, presuming that he's able to come back here and be at full health, and let's see what the squad looks like, too, as maybe things get shuffled around from there.
Well, I think the best news here is that Mizzou is off for a few weeks. They don't compete again until Senior Day at Hearn Center, actually, against Iowa State on February 22nd. So that what you were talking about in terms of getting healthy, heading into what's going to be, I assume, a challenging duel again with a perennially good Cyclones program. So if you can get your health built up a little bit heading into Big 12s and then the NCAA tournament, hopefully you put yourself in a better position there. I did want to give a shout out. Cam Steed at 165, Seth Nitzel at heavyweight. Both did beat ranked opponents against Oklahoma on Saturday. And then Josh Edmond was able to score an 11-4 decision at 141. Unfortunately, that was the only win for Mizzou at Oklahoma State on Sunday. So there were some positives there, but like you mentioned, this team's just dealing with a lot right now. Hopefully you rest up for a few weeks and you can finish strong.
But that stuff's important because if you can get enough of your wrestlers still ranked, you're earning yourself another position to go fight for in Tulsa. And there's nothing saying that Missouri can't have a weekend in Tulsa where they go out and they take 8, 9, 10 like they have before and find ways to wrestle guys into spots. But you need to do your part in the regular season to earn those spots for your conference. So every single individual victory will be important for this Missouri team, even though the team scores will not be what fans are accustomed to when it comes to these dual meets. Every single one of them still matters in terms of establishing yourself and getting yourself to the spot where when they allocate all the spots for the NCAA tournament, you have more to wrestle into your weight class than maybe you otherwise would have.
I don't want to say that the regular season duels and tournaments and stuff are meaningless. I'm not saying that at all, but your seasons are remembered by what you do in the Big 12 tournament and the NCAA tournament. And Mizzou still has that in front of it, and hopefully, again, can get at least close to full strength to make a run at it.
Yeah, so we are certainly looking for the best in February and strength into March for Mizzou wrestling. A lot of other things are going on. Swim and dive went out to, the divers did out to Colorado Springs and had success at the Air Force tournament. I don't know if you have any specific notes on that because you normally have like a full page of everybody who's ever been involved with an athletic event is at the ready.
I do have some notes. I'll run through a few. So, yeah, the Air Force diving invite last week, and Mizzou got the team win on both the men's and the women's side. We've talked about Collier Dyer on here before. He picked up another win in the 3-meter competition. 2 golds for Gabriela San Juan Carmona on the women's side, so congrats to her. Swim and dive is off until the SEC championships coming up the 17th through the 22nd in Athens. Track and field has been hosting a lot at their new look indoor facility here in the Hearn Center. Had the Rick McGuire invite over the weekend. Christy Perez-Snyman set the program record in the high jump. Jonathan Saremis set a personal record in the triple jump, going to 16.94 meters. That's actually the longest jump in the country so far this season, so that was cool to see. Another home meet coming up for track and field, the Missouri Invitational, starting on Friday of this week. Mizzou Gymnastics, a top 10 matchup at LSU, and I guess you quote-unquote call it a loss, but still a 197.125 team score is nothing to sneeze at this point of the season. Helen Hu, another 9.975 on the beam.
Who's giving Helen Hu 9.95s? I want to know. Because I've watched each of these last two, and I'm like, how is that any different than what she did 3 weeks ago?
She's real good. She's a legit national. Nobody's putting the scores up on the beam that Helen Hu is right now. She's a legit national championship contender individually there. And Mara Titarsoli on the bars, 9.925. So still a lot of positives out of Baton Rouge against a team that the defending national champs, ranked third in the country entering that meet. Up next, heading to Illinois on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I want to actually. I'm going to take my look right now and see if anything's changed.
Well, while you're
road to nationals.
While you're doing that, I'll run through a couple more sports. Women's tennis beat visiting SLU 4-0 on Saturday, and they'll be at Minnesota coming up on Friday afternoon. Men's golf tees off, I guess you would say, the 2025 portion of the schedule early this week in the National Invitational Tournament in Tucson. And we already talked about Mizzou Softball with our guest with Crenshaw, that you've got the events in Clearwater, Florida coming up starting on Friday, and that juicy rematch on Saturday against Duke, which Crenshaw herself said she's had that circled on the calendar for a while.
There will be some people circled there. Yes, my check of road to nationals and the update for Mizzou Gymnastics, still ninth, about a tenth and a half behind Kentucky in terms of the team average this season. Kentucky's high is a 1.973, Missouri's is a 1.972, so consider them pretty equivalent, even though Missouri, of course, eclipsed the Cats at the Hearn Center a little bit earlier this season. But that team high, while it's been very consistent, has not been as high as some of the other teams around it. So that's the next place to go. For instance, Oregon State is in 10th, and they have a season high of 197.6. Cal is in 7th place nationally. A 197.275 is their high. Basically, everybody that's ahead of Missouri, including, of course, LSU, which put together the nation's second 198 at home. So that was going to be tough to eclipse no matter what happened. Everybody ahead of Missouri has higher high scores. And you have to drop a high score when it comes to the automatic qualifier for the NCAA, but you want to have that score as high as possible so you're not dropping a lower high score and seeing your total team score go down. So I think the next step for this Missouri team is continue with the consistency in putting all four together, but turn 9.8s into 9.85s and turn 9.85s into 9.9s. That will be the next step to get themselves where they want to peak in March.
Mizzou's ranked 9th in the country. The top 8 get to compete for the national championship. And so that gives you an idea of where Mizzou's at. They're right on the doorstep, and it's really exciting to see what they've been able to put up for the last several years now. And they're very much in the mix to be back in that NCAA championship top 8 conversation.
Yes, definitely. What else did I feel like I missed something? It was good to see Dr. Rick McGuire, by the way, honored with his name on this past weekend's track and field event inside the Hearns Fieldhouse. So honored, and see so many personal records and on all the nice new steps people get to take on the new equipment and new pits and everything. That was, I think, really neat and fitting for someone. If you've never heard of Dr. Rick McGuire, look him up. He is a Mizzou legend. He's a Mizzou Hall of Famer, and he is, if you've ever heard of the positive coaching program at the University of Missouri, that's basically his. He invented the whole thing. So not just in the field of track and field, but in the field of sports psychology and everything else, someone who's a standout and duly honored and rightly honored this past week.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a chance to talk with some of the graduate assistants for the women's basketball team in our recent road trip, and I was kind of talking about Dr. McGuire because of the honors that he received, and well-deserved, like you said. And he said, yeah, all of us, all the graduate students are in that positive coaching program. I mean, it's such a great opportunity. If you want to be a coach, and obviously if you're a graduate assistant, that's what you want to do, it's a perfect program out there, and it fills an important need to be able to lead young men and women and do it the right way, and he certainly is a trailblazer in that respect.
Absolutely. So I think that means that basically we've done all the damage we can do today.
I think we're good. Next week we'll see. You've got some traveling coming up with
Yeah,
Tiger
we'll see what
baseball.
happens.
When they get rolling, we'll see how that show looks like, and we'll go from there.
Yes, we will indeed. And we will thank you, of course, as always, for listening to the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast, and thank Andrew Bristow for his production efforts. Thanks as well to Julia Crenshaw for joining us, and safe travels down to Clearwater. What a tough assignment. 10 days in sunny Florida. At least it should stay sunny. The snow stays far away from the Tampa area, I promise. For Brad Trinago, I'm Matt Michaels. We look forward to speaking with you next time, right here on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast.